Hello, everyone. Welcome to 7E's Inside ESG, where we meet with leaders in sustainability, climate, and the ESG space. The series aims to provide a clear view into the ever-changing landscape of sustainability practices. I'm Doron, Marketing Director for 7E, an AI-centric generative compliance solution focusing on enterprise regulations, streamlining data collection and reporting, including risk, governance, environment, and safety. Our guest today is Marilyn Johnson. Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
I am great. Great to be here.
Great to have you. Allow me to share a little bit about your history and share with our audience. Marilyn is a global sustainability leader with more than 15 years of experience driving impact across public and private organizations, named one of the 2024 Global Top 50 Women in Sustainability. She has helped companies turn random acts of sustainability into lasting strategies, aligning climate goals and community well-being with real business results. Today, she consults with Go Big Strategies, partnering with mission-driven organizations to put equity, sustainability, and social impact at the center of their work. Beyond her professional roles, Marilyn serves on the Global Mentorship Initiative Leadership Advisory Team and is a proud Blue Zones ambassador championing healthier, more resilient communities worldwide. That's impressive, Marilyn. I hope I got it all right.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll talk more about it. That's all good.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. So, hi again. Thank you for joining us today. Before we start, I actually like to start with my first question. Kind of, if you don't mind sharing with us a bit about yourself beyond the bio that I introduced, and if you can share with us where your sustainability journey started. I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much, Doron, for having me. Great to be here. And I love talking about sustainability because it's what I've done my whole career. And I've always had what I would call the thread of health. That's kind of been my driver. My undergraduate, my graduate work was all in health sciences. And then I evolved into health and safety. And my background really, I grew up in Canada and did a lot of outdoor hiking. And so you just fall in love with nature. If you've ever been to the Rocky Mountains up in Canada or even in the US or anywhere really. But so I think it's really important that we take care of the world that we live in, and also take care of the people. So for me, sustainability is a very natural place for me to live and land. And so through my career, I would say that I'm kind of a pioneer in the field because there was not a program, or there weren't degrees, or there weren't really roles in sustainability. My first kind of step into it was in health and safety. And then that was a big deal when the environment joined the H and the S, the health and safety, and became EHS. And then EHS evolved into EHS and S, and they added sustainability. And for me, it's just the big umbrella. Sustainability encompasses really how you do business. We'll talk more about that today. But and so I've worked in oil and gas and natural resources, Weyerhaeuser, forest products company. My big opportunity, what I would say was kind of the big moment for me was when I was working with a software company called Dolphin Software, and we were helping to take the data that was in material safety data sheets, which is a requirement, a regulatory requirement, and try to make it useful in helping reduce risk to health and environment in purchasing. And so we got acquired by a bigger company, IHS, which became IHS Markit, and sold for $44 billion not too long ago. But IHS is a information services company. And what we saw was companies were really trying to start to get their arms around this thing called sustainability. And so that was when I was there, had the opportunity. They said, we have customers wanting to do this. We need to do this too. Help us walk the talk. What does that look like? And it was awesome. It was super fun. I had a blank slate. We had to figure out, how do we talk about it? How do we implement it? What does it mean to us? What does it mean to our customers? What does it mean to the communities? And just a great journey. And so from there, my career launched into sustainability, and it's been a blast. And I've led global sustainability at both public and private companies, and from the ground up, launching and leading, what does it look like for the organization? And every company is different. Every company has different talents and impact in the world. But I really, truly believe that companies have a huge role to play in a sustainable future, because
Sure.
companies are the innovators. Companies are the ones who hire a lot of people. They create the products that we use and need every day. So companies have to do it right. Government has their role, civil society has their role, but I really believe that companies play a unique, they have such a great opportunity. So we'll get more into this today, talking about what are companies doing, what are the struggles, but it's such a great opportunity if companies approach it with that mindset.
I can really relate to that. I think, and I agree, government, academics, and so on have a huge role to do. But that's I can relate. That's part of why I stepped into this space from other technological industries. Let's call it. Is there's a lot of impact to be done by companies, as you said. That's where a lot of the talented people are working. This is where the funds are, the resources, and I think that's a lot where let's call it the action is happening. And I can also relate. It's interesting. A lot of the people in our space don't talk about their beginning at the university or with a job, but always talk about outdoors, about the nature and when we started. And I can relate to that. We just talked about just recent vacations and so on. And so hiking is big for me also, and traveling outdoors. So yeah, I really like that. Thanks for sharing. Let's begin. Following that introduction, let's begin with a kind of a big picture view. From your work with both corporations and nonprofits, what shifts do you see in how organizations are approaching sustainability today compared to, say, a decade ago?
Now, this is it's super interesting to see because it is morphing and evolving. It's kind of like an amoeba. It's changing. So 10 years ago, sustainability would be a way to differentiate yourself. And I'll tell you a story. We at the company showed up on what was called a blacklist, and they don't do that anymore. But they would actually call out companies, and the reason we were on it was because we hadn't done anything yet. We hadn't communicated it. We didn't have a strategy. We weren't publishing about sustainability. So 10 years ago, you could really differentiate yourself by simply taking some action, sharing it, communicating it, publishing a report, and this would be across those three dimensions of the ESG, the environment, the social, and the governance.
Right.
Today, companies need to be committed to sustainable kind of long-term impact, and it needs to be part of the business strategy. So evolving from a risk compliance to innovation and business resilience. However, that's not necessarily going to look the same at every company. And it gets very complicated when you start looking at what are the regulatory requirements? Is it a level playing field? I've always worked primarily with big global companies. So you have a lot of regulatory,
Right.
considerations and pressures, and they vary depending where you're operating. But big picture would say that we have shifted from the kind of the glossy storytelling and the 100, I hope we're done with the 200-page sustainability reports that nobody reads except the report reviewers, but really moving
So
from
that's
the
kind of a
storytelling.
secret. No, don't, you shouldn't say that. That's a secret that no one reads them. But
That's right. But I think we've evolved. So going from the
yeah,
storytelling to data transparency and accountability. The stories are super important. I'm not saying we get away from that, but it needs to be more than that. There needs to be some real change and impact. And so this is moving away from kind of these green projects and having green teams to do all that, but really having systemic change so that the entire organization is operating in a sustainable fashion and it's embedded in the business strategy. So this question alone could be the whole podcast because
yeah,
it's changed a lot and it's taking on different, I'll call them personalities in different companies. But until we get the data right, it's very difficult for the investment community to compare apples to apples. So it does go back to the data, and I know we'll talk some more about that. But it's changed a lot.
I have to agree. It's you see, as you said, although there are some people reading the reports, it should be more than the reporting. I mean, reporting is important if it gives you, as you said, the right data, if it gives you kind of where the company goes, but it doesn't speak enough about the narrative, the strategy, and there's so many talented people here in this field that can actually do strategy and make the company more sustainable. That actually makes sense also on the bottom line. So I think that's definitely something we should talk about more. And kind of as a follow-up question, you often spoken on turning random acts of sustainability into real strategy, as we just mentioned. This really resonates with me. I see huge challenge there with many companies we work with. Can you share an example of how you've seen transformation play out inside the company?
Got lots of stories there. So the phrase that random acts of sustainability really came from probably what you're seeing. Many organizations, well-intentioned, but kind of
Mhm.
scattered efforts. They might have a recycling program, they do energy audits, they might have a community grant, doing some things in the community, but not necessarily connected to the business strategy or with really meaningful, measurable outcomes. And so, an example, when I was with IHS, it's a professional services company. And when I joined, they were already had been in business for decades. So clearly a successful company with long-term viability. However, when I was asked to lead sustainability, like I said earlier, it was kind of a blank slate. I found that there were lots of things happening, kind of in pockets. And there were lots of efforts across the company that would be considered sustainable practice, but it wasn't linked and there wasn't alignment and not a lot of metrics and reporting or understanding of the impact of that work, whether it was the safety programs, hiring practices, energy efficiency. There's any number of things that were happening across the company. So that's where there was recognition that this needed to be embedded across the enterprise. And so this meant shifting from this ad hoc kind of actions, things that are
Yeah.
happening that could actually be cut off because there wasn't really strategic intent around it, but just kind of doing good business, into a more of a unified framework, and then tying those sustainability goals directly to the business performance, risk management, client value. I was just thinking about one
Yeah.
transformative moment where we
Yeah, go
integrated,
ahead.
and this gets exciting when you start to do things that are more innovative. So there's I always say compliance is like the base of sustainability. Like being compliant to me is not being
Yeah.
sustainable, right? So, but at the company, we were able to take the core data and the analytics offerings, and then instead of just internal things. So there's the internal things, and then there's also the business side. So helping clients to manage their environment and social risk with the same rigor that you would do with financial risk, which is another evolution that we're seeing happen slowly. But it's very exciting when you can start to leverage sustainability as a market differentiator and elevate those ESG, those sustainability activities, into a strategic growth driver. So that's where it gets very exciting and you get bigger impact.
I love that. Makes a lot of sense and really explains kind of moving from random acts of sustainability into strategy. Um, if you don't mind, I'm kind of put you on the spot here. You were named last year one of the global top 50 women in sustainability. What does that recognition mean to you personally, and what does it say about the momentum of women leadership in this space?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it was an incredible honor to be named one of the top global women in sustainability. Personally, it affirms the years of work that I've poured into bridging business and social impact. But even more than that, it's a recognition of all the teams, the partners, the people, the communities that I've had the privilege to work with because none of this happens alone. One of my favorite quotes is sustainability is a team sport, and you absolutely need a whole team. So while the award was, of course, humbling and very nice to get, see it less as a personal accolade and more of a sign of momentum, like you say. Women
Oh,
leaders are increasingly visible in ESG, whether it's in boardrooms, government, leading nonprofits, and changing how decisions are being made. And I really am a strong advocate for just more minds, and different perspectives are going to come up with more unique and better, solutions. So there's a growing recognition that diverse leadership and sustainable business practices aren't just nice to have, but rather a business imperative. So the momentum tells me that it's not just a moment, but a movement, right? I don't see it shifting backwards, but these things take time and they kind of move along like the market maybe up and down. And there's so my hope is that inspires the next generation of women to step forward with confidence, knowing that their voices are helping to shape a more
terrific.
sustainable, equitable future. And I think a lot of women, especially young, I have a lot of young women who reach out to me and they're just, and young men and young women, passionate. They really want to do purposeful, good work. And so you do that work embedded in science, but also with with genuine intent to make the world a better place, for people and for the planet.
That's amazing. And I said it to, when we interview, when we meet younger people and they want to go into the space, there's sometimes this generation, we're not here to admit how old we are, but when
Yeah.
younger ones are coming in and it's not just kind of a fantasy, we want to make the work a better place. They really want to be part of impact, change, and they ask questions I haven't seen before in interviews, which I love, and I can really relate to that. And I think this could be a call for more young women and men to approach you, maybe to learn more and how to get into this seriously. I mean, it's a great space. And by the way, I think I'm not sure all the numbers. I saw some research. I know in climate for sure. It's more diverse than other sectors of technology and industry, by the way, which is great. And right, so it's the most innovative and the most diverse, and that's, as you said, it's a movement.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
probably quote you on that soon enough. Kind of going deeper into sustainability and regulations. In more than a few cases, you were instrumental in embedding ESG in both strategy and reporting. How do you see regulatory frameworks like CSRD in Europe or the SEC proposals, or investor expectations shaping corporate action today? And maybe I can add to that. There's more regulation coming on the state level. I know in a few states this year, some of them are still on hold, kind of moving. How do you see that, and what do you say to companies now?
Yeah, this is, I think, a fascinating area because there is absolutely a need for regulatory guardrails and helping, like I said earlier, to level the playing field. Um,
Right.
so the upside is that regulatory frameworks like CSRD in Europe, the SEC proposals in the US, the state,
Yeah.
particularly California,
Yeah.
combined with the investor expectations, are helping to accelerate the shift away from this kind of voluntary publish a report ESG to more mandatory measurable ESG. There's a ton of challenges, and part of that is that a lot of companies are global. They're operating in different places. Even if you're just in the US or in one country, you've
Yeah.
got different state. So it's very complex. So what can happen is a company can get kind of stuck in the quagmire of all these acronyms and all these requirements, which
Yeah.
can pull away from the innovation that we want. However, it's kind of this necessary, I'll call it the necessary evil. Like we have to get the data, we have to get things lined up. And for if you're following the money, investment is going to go where there's clarity of the numbers. It's difficult for billions of dollars to be allocated to something that is a little bit too soft. So these mandatory measurable requirements are what's necessary. But the regulation is in the end game. Like I said earlier, it's kind of the floor, not the ceiling. It's the like everyone's got to be compliant and do that. So the companies will thrive are the ones that are not just complying, but that they're using this data strategically to anticipate risk, to build trust, and to unlock that innovation. So, but like you asked me earlier about like 10 years ago, you could differentiate
Yeah.
yourself by having a really robust program and communicate that. I think the future leaders in business are those that are really doing sustainability to unlock that innovation and reaffirm their license to operate. So the smart move would be to treat ESG data like finance, embed it into your decision making, know what you need to measure it, and get good data. That's tricky too. That's a whole nother challenge.
That's the
But
next
it's
thing. Yeah.
not just for the purpose of reporting. Like you've got to do that, but you've got to align your governance, your operations, and your culture so that sustainability is not some add-on, but it's really about how the business runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's kind of going back to it's kind of what the cliche is, data is king. And on that
Yeah.
to that, with stuff finance, if you're in the field, make the CFO your best friend. I think it already starts that, we do report about climate risks and goes to sometimes into enterprise risk and other fields. As you said, started with EHS, with safety and health and so on. And I think here it is follow the money. And they are always, that's kind of leading to our next questions about technology and where these things come into play, because that's what we need to do take away kind of some of the heavy lifting in data and then focus, as you said, not on the floor, but on the ceiling, and get away from, as I think in the previous episode was said, kind of walk away from the ESG ABC soup.
Yeah.
And closer, yeah. Chris Platt said it last time. Amazing. That really kind of leads us to the next question, where we see it's not it's not a surprise, and it's not a secret that technology, especially AI. Here you go. We said AI. We have to say AI today, I think, in every episode, in every ecosystem. So we said it. So we got that off the checklist. So yeah, so technology is accelerating fast, especially in the past 2 years, from automation to generative AI. In your view, how may innovation assist companies to deliver and report on sustainability?
Well, I am an eternal optimist. My sister would say I see the world through rose-colored glasses, but I feel like that's a better way to live and be hopeful and optimistic. So I'm going to go on the side that AI is going to help us out in this area. Technology, AI, automation is already transforming ESG from the reporting exercise that's required into a strategic
Right.
advantage. I mean, I think this is going to change a lot of things around the amount of time, energy, effort, and resource that would be spent gathering and analyzing data, but instead accelerate that and get into transformative change. So moving away from just compliance
Right.
to the innovation space. It helps companies optimize impact, measure outcomes. You can make a smarter kind of this data-driven sustainability decision. And that's really the key, right? Like if you have good data, then you can actually make a decision around that. If you don't, you're kind of guessing, you're hoping, right? And that they say hope's not a strategy, right?
Yes.
So, for instance, some companies will use AI to track emissions across complex global supply chains, or they can then model climate risks and resource use in real time. We haven't even talked about supply chain. I mean, I think AI is going to be massively transformative, and really,
And
it's
it's
what we
time.
need in order to get the supply chain where we need it. There's a lot of people working really hard and trying with good intention, and the kind of, I would say, like maybe the tools aren't quite there yet, but the supply chain is the crux of really accelerating sustainability, in my opinion, a huge piece of it. So others might be leveraging automation to reduce energy consumption, the waste in their operations. So again, just turning the data, the ESG data to action and not just compliance and paperwork and checking boxes and filling out reports. I mean, that doesn't move the needle. And in fact, there's evidence of increased reporting, and yet emissions are also increasing. So we might be better at reporting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're reducing emissions. So we can't get stuck in that. So a lot of progress has been made. I think there's still big challenges to what exactly we need. So there's a lot of data, as you know. I mean, this is your world, right? Like there's no shortage of data.
No.
So AI, I think, will help us in turning that data into really reliable, action-oriented, you know, information for meaningful change. So there was the IBM study on business value. There was an Institute for Business Value found that companies actually spend 43% more on sustainability reporting than they are on innovation. So I would love to see that flip-flopped so that we're
Well,
spending more on innovation and using budget and money, again, not around just compliance and disclosure, checking the box, but rather investing in game-changing solutions and operational transformation. I mean, total closed loop, total circular economy. I mean, these things are possible, but it's going to take a little bit of time because we need the data in order to know what to do.
yeah, for sure. And one of the things we see a lot is companies where you see very talented people in the ESG team or the head of the ESG they are kind of working for the reports and all the other way around. Our reports working for us. We need to take the heavy lifting away from that. And as you said, it is the floor. And we need to focus forward and put the budgets to innovation. I agree with that. And we'll go back to being optimistic, which I think really kind of it's very common for in our field. We have to be optimistic, I think, otherwise,
You
we need
wouldn't
to
be here
start
if you
somewhere.
weren't.
Exactly. So from there, especially where where we see, we talked about young people and about some of them are very concerned about the environment and so on. So that kind of brings me to the inspiration part of our conversation. So kind of before we wrap up, I would like a question that I ask actually all my guests is, what motivations and drivers do you think will shape the next chapter of sustainability and impact of our industry?
Yeah, I mean, you probably are seeing some themes when you ask this question, so we'll see if this hits on your themes that you're seeing. So I'm gonna do the three, right? The three powerful drivers. So the first we talked about a lot, data, regulation, transparency. I mean, it's clear that we need the data and it has to be good. And having worked for two different professional services company where data is what we did, it's got to be reliable, it's got to be consistent, it's got to be current. I mean, there's a price you got to pay for that. It doesn't just happen. You don't just companies are not going on Google and trying to figure out the next $1 billion investment. They want very good, reliable data.
They
So
do.
that's setting a new baseline, right? So data, regulation, transparency. The second one I would say we also touched on is the technology and innovation, from whether it's AI to clean energy breakthroughs. There are tools that are making sustainability more measurable and actionable than ever. And I get very excited because there are things out there that just haven't blown up commercially. Whether it's a solar panel roof tiles, rather than regular roof tiles, whether it's, I mean, there's amazing work in the oceans, cleaning up oceans. I mean, I think
Right.
desalination. There's a lot of, we're just kind of getting going amazingly. I mean, and sometimes humans need to be in more of crisis mode to figure it out. So I hope that we don't get there, but so there's a lot around technology and innovation. And the third one is around people and the human demand, whether it's the community, employees, customers. People are wanting to make better choices. So the world needs to present better choices. We need to work together. So where you work, who you buy from, what you buy, how you buy, people are looking for organizations that match those values. So we're seeing shifts. I mean, again, fits and starts, but when you put those all together, it means that sustainability is no longer optional or reputational. It's really fundamental to resilience and to growth for the long term, and really is a business imperative. So I think the organizations that embrace this mindset are the ones that are going to not just survive, but they will lead the future.
You're almost on the theme with us, but I think everyone has their own take on it, and I love what you're saying. Makes a lot of sense. And companies, yeah, it's there's no really other option, as you said about sustainability. I totally agree with that. Um, Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing everything you just did. I think it'll be fascinating for our listeners, and your perspective is to learn from. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
Well, just thank you. I appreciate being here and sharing time. I love talking about this stuff with other like-minded folks who are just trying to do the good work. Privileged to be in a space at such an important time. And I have this vision that one day, all business will be sustainable business. So thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, and thanks again for joining us. I really love this conversation. For all our listeners, if you'd like to contact Marilyn, you can find her on LinkedIn. Also have the name and details in the description. And thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions for 70, feel free to send us an email to hello@the70.com or reach out on LinkedIn. For more Inside ESG, subscribe to the 70 channel on YouTube or Spotify. Again, Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll probably, as you said, some of these questions, we can talk for an hour for each one of them. So we'll probably need to have you again sometime soon. Thanks again.
That would be great. Thank you.
And until next time, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.